When my dad told us he was moving out, my mom laughed in relief. I stared at my mom in shock, at the relief that was clearly on her face. My older sister sighed next to me, a smile plastered on her face. I was confused at everyone's reactions. Dad didn't even look surprised that mom and my sister reacted like that. "What is going on?" I demanded. My sister wouldn't look me in the eye as she pulled out her phone and began fiddling with it. "It's not my story to tell," was all she said. I glanced at Mom. "Well?" I asked. Mom shrugged. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but I'll tell you everything when you're older." I stared at her in surprise. "I'm 16, I yelled. "Tell me what's going on." My sister headed to our parents' room to help Dad pack while Mom shook her head at me. "If you have to know, then ask your father," she snapped before storming away. I hurried into their bedroom where Dad was busy throwing clothes into a suitcase. My sister sat on the bed, watching him with no emotion on her face. I thought that was unusual. I glanced at Dad. "What did you do?" I asked harshly. Dad jerked his head up and glared at me. "What makes you think I did anything?" he asked curiously. I shrugged. "Because you're leaving," I answered. "Mom isn't leaving." Dad shook his head and turned back to his task. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered. He didn't say another word about it as he grabbed his luggage and headed for the door. Tears entered my eyes as I saw him get in his car and drive away. I waited until everyone was asleep that night before sneaking into my father's office. It looked exactly the same as it did the last time I was in there. I began looking through the drawers of the desk, searching for any information that might shed some light on the reason for Dad leaving. I got to a drawer that was locked up tight. I frowned, glancing around for the key. In frustration, I kicked over the office chair, and that was when I spotted the key taped to the bottom of the chair. I grabbed the key and unlocked the drawer. My jaw dropped when I pulled out a thick folder full of bank statements. He was sending someone money, but he was also receiving money too. What was this foreign bank account? I was about to reach for another paper when the office door opened and Mom stood there in her bathrobe. She glared at me harshly. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "What are these bank statements?" I asked sharply. "What was Dad involved in?" Mom rushed forward and snatched the folder up, shoving it under her arm as she took a step back. "None of your business," she said, but her voice hitched and her face was pale, fear flashing through her eyes. I took a step closer to her. "What are you not telling me?" I asked quietly. "Leave it alone, Iris," Mom snapped at me. There was no real heat behind her words, though. She suddenly looked a lot older and tired. "Go to bed, sweetheart." I was about to head out of the office when headlights suddenly flooded the room. Someone was in our driveway. Fear filled me as I glanced at the time on the clock in the office. It was 3 in the morning. Who was here so late? Mom instantly paled more. "Iris," she hissed. "Go to your sister's room and wake her up. Then get into the closet and don't come out no matter what you hear." I stared at her as my heart raced in my chest. I was terrified. "What is going on?" I whispered. "Just go," Mom snapped. I stumbled out of the room and hurried to my sister's bedroom, locking myself inside. I glanced out of the window and saw an older man get out of the car and jog up the porch, banging a fist on the front door. My sister woke up, startled. I listened to Mom's words and dragged my sister into her closet, locking us inside. "Tell me what's going on," I whispered. My sister sighed, but finally began talking. "Dad was mixed up with some really bad men," she answered. "He's been doing jobs for them, earning money and sending money when he needs to. It was to keep us all safe. They threatened the family. That's why he left. To keep us safe because the bad men were escalating." We heard yelling and a scream followed by a loud cry. My sister grabbed my hand and we held on for dear life. A moment later, the closet door opened and Mom stood there with tears running down her cheeks. She sobbed and gathered us into a tight hug. "That was a friend of your father's," she choked on a sob. "I'm so sorry, girls, but they caught up to him. He didn't make it." I doubled over and immediately lost the contents of my stomach.